The air in Ouagadougou was heavy that morning. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, leader of Burkina Faso, sat at a long wooden table inside the presidential office. The soft hum of the ceiling fan the only sound in the room. An aide entered quietly, holding a crisp, cream-colored envelope sealed with the emblem of the United States. "It's from Vice President JD Vance," the aide whispered. Traoré broke the seal slowly. Inside, in formal black ink, was an invitation to the White House, a private peace talk with Donald Trump. For a brief moment his eyes narrowed. He remembered the last time a U.S. official promised dialogue. It ended with threats and demands. The room seemed colder. Outside, distant sounds of motorcycles and street vendors felt strangely far away. He placed the letter on the desk and leaned back. "When a meeting is meant to bring peace," he said softly, "it should come from respect, not pressure." The aide froze, unsure of what to say. Traoré's voice grew firm. "Tell them. My answer is no." But what came next would make that no echo far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. Within hours, international news channels flashed the headline: Captain Ibrahim Traoré rejects White House invitation. In Washington, JD Vance read the report twice, his brow tightening. The invitation had been personal, his first major diplomatic move since becoming vice president. Reporters swarmed outside the West Wing. "Why would he reject an offer for peace?" one shouted. No one had answers. In Paris, commentators speculated that Traoré was sending a message to the West, one of independence. In Lagos, radio callers debated whether he was a hero or a fool. Back in Burkina Faso, people gathered in cafes, watching replays of his brief press statement. Traoré had spoken calmly. "Burkina Faso will not enter any discussion where our dignity is compromised." But then, a twist. Late that night, a source from within the U.S. State Department leaked that the peace talk would not have been private at all. Cameras, press, and a staged handshake had been planned without Traoré's consent. That revelation changed everything, and in Washington, Trump was furious. The next morning, Traoré's secure line rang. The aide checked the caller ID, his voice trembling. "It's Donald Trump, himself." Traoré picked up. "Mr. Trump," he said evenly. On the other end, Trump's voice was sharp, but strangely measured. "Captain, I think you're making a big mistake. The world is watching. This was your chance to show unity." Traoré's tone didn't waver. Unity is not built in a room where one side writes the script. For a long moment there was silence. Then Trump's voice softened unexpectedly. "You think I control this? But there are forces here that even I can't stop." That caught Traoré off guard. For the first time he heard something almost human in Trump's voice. Not arrogance, but warning. "What do you mean?" Traoré asked. Trump hesitated. "If you don't come, you won't just be rejecting me, you'll be challenging something much bigger." Before Traoré could respond, the line went dead. Outside, a storm began to roll in over Ouagadougou, and far away in Washington, someone else was already preparing their next move. The storm over Ouagadougou raged through the night. By morning, the streets smelled of wet dust and diesel. Captain Ibrahim Traoré sat at his desk, staring at an old letter from years ago, one written by a former African leader who had accepted a similar peace talk invitation from Washington. That leader never returned home. His government collapsed within weeks. The memory was like a wound that never healed. Traoré folded the letter and placed it back inside a worn leather folder. His foreign affairs minister, a quiet man named Karim, entered the room. "Sir, JD Vance has requested a public explanation for your refusal. The U.S. media is already framing it as an act of hostility." Traoré looked up slowly. "Then let them hear the truth." Karim hesitated. "The truth might make them double their pressure." Traore's voice was steady. Pressure means nothing to a man who knows where he stands. But before they could draft the statement, another message arrived. This time from an African president Traore trusted. The note was short. Do not travel. There is more at stake than you think. The message burned in Traore's mind. He knew the man who sent it, President Amadou Keita of Mali, was not one to exaggerate. That afternoon, during a meeting with military advisors, Traore noticed two unfamiliar faces in the corridor outside the briefing room. Both wore civilian clothes but carried themselves like trained operatives. Karim stepped out to confront them. Minutes later he returned, visibly shaken. They say they're here for a security consultation on behalf of the U.S. Embassy. Traore's jaw tightened. Without my approval? They claim it's urgent. About the peace talk, Karim replied. The meeting dissolved into tense silence. Outside, the faint hum of the air conditioner was the only sound. Traore finally stood. Bring them in. The two men entered, polite smiles masking something colder. One spoke first, his voice smooth. Captain, rejecting the vice president's invitation could send the wrong signal. The world wants peace. Traore's eyes didn't flinch. Peace cannot be forced into a photo. The other man leaned forward, almost whispering. Then perhaps you don't understand what this meeting was really for. The taller of the two strangers placed a thin envelope on the table. Inside is information about a deal, one that involves your country, your allies, and your enemies. Karim reached for it, but Traore stopped him. He opened the envelope himself. Inside were printed pages detailing secret talks between certain African leaders and U.S. corporations over mining rights, talks that excluded Burkina Faso entirely. The air in the room seemed heavier. So this is your peace? Traore asked quietly. The man smiled faintly. We're offering you a seat at the table. If you come to Washington, without you, decisions will be made. Without your voice. For a moment, Traore felt the weight of the choice. Accepting could mean influence. Refusing could mean isolation. But then, he remembered Keita's warning, and the leader who never came home. Traore pushed the envelope back across the table. My country's dignity is not for sale. The men stood, their smiles gone. Then you've chosen a difficult road, Captain. Outside, the sound of distant thunder rolled again. And somewhere in Washington, someone had already decided what that difficult road would look like. By dawn, the streets of Ouagadougou were alive again, but Traore's mind was far from at ease. Karim entered with urgent news. Sir, President Amadou Keita's envoy has arrived. He says it's about the warning he sent. Minutes later, an older man with silver hair and tired eyes stepped into the office. His name was Issouf Diallo, a trusted diplomat from Mali, who had served through 3 coups. He shook Traore's hand firmly. Captain, what I'm about to tell you cannot leave this room. Traore nodded. Diallo lowered his voice. The so-called peace talk is a cover. Washington wants to use your presence to legitimize a secret resource deal already signed by leaders in the region. If you attend, your face will be on every screen, making it look like you agreed. Traore felt a sharp chill, despite the heat outside. Diallo slid over a flash drive. This has proof, leaked contracts, meeting minutes. But if they know you have it, you'll be targeted. From the window, Traore could see school children laughing in the street. He clenched the flash drive in his palm. Then we make sure the truth reaches the world before they stop us. That afternoon, Traore decided to test if he was already being watched. He left the palace quietly, heading toward the central market, a place where foreign spies would stand out. The scent of roasted peanuts and grilled meat filled the air. Women in bright fabrics called out prices. Children darted between stalls. But amid the noise, Traore spotted them. Two men pretending to examine vegetables, their eyes tracking his every move. Karim, walking beside him, whispered, "Should I alert security?" "No," Traore replied calmly. "Let's see how far they follow." They weaved deeper into the market until they reached a narrow alley behind a spice shop. The scent of cinnamon and pepper was thick. Suddenly the two men appeared at the other end. One stepped forward. "Captain, Washington urges you to reconsider." Traore met his gaze. "And if I don't?" The man's expression hardened. "Then, we will reconsider what happens next." Before Traore could respond, the sound of motorbikes roared from the street. More men, this time armed, were arriving. Karim's voice shook. "Sir, we need to move. Now." The market erupted in chaos as the armed men dismounted their bikes. Vendors shouted, children screamed, and baskets of fruit crashed to the ground. Traore grabbed Karim's arm. "This way." They sprinted through the twisting alleys, the sound of boots pounding behind them. The smell of dust and smoke filled their lungs. A young boy suddenly darted into their path, holding out a wooden slingshot. "Take it," he cried. Traore took it without breaking stride, using it to strike a glass jar from a shelf, sending shards scattering into the pursuer's path. The men stumbled for a split second, just enough time for Traore and Karim to disappear into a side street. Breathing hard, they slipped into the back door of a tailor's shop. The tailor, an old friend, locked the door without a word. Karim leaned against the wall, sweat dripping down his face. "They won't stop, sir. This is only the beginning." Traore looked at the flash drive still in his pocket. "Then we end it before they can." Outside, the sound of sirens grew louder. But whose side were they on? The tailor's shop was quiet, except for the ticking of an old wall clock. Traore's eyes stayed on the back door. Every few seconds, faint footsteps echoed outside. Then a voice came from the shadows. "Captain, we don't have much time." From behind a curtain stepped Musa, a former intelligence officer who had vanished months ago. His left arm was in a sling, and his face carried deep lines of exhaustion. "Musa." Karim's jaw dropped. "We thought you were dead." "They tried," Musa replied coldly. "But I survived, and now I know what they're planning." He pulled a folded map from his jacket. "The Americans aren't just after your public image. They want to secure uranium routes before the Chinese arrive. This peace talk is their shortcut." Traore's fists clenched. "And if I keep refusing?" Musa's eyes darkened. "They'll remove you, and not with politics." Outside, the sound of a slow, deliberate knock echoed through the shop. The tailor's face went pale. "That's not the police." The knocking grew louder, turning into heavy bangs on the door. "Rear exit," Musa whispered. They slipped into the narrow passage behind the shop. The air smelled of oil and damp wood. Karim led the way, but before they reached the alley, the sound of boots rushed toward them from the other end. "We're boxed in," Karim muttered. Traore scanned the walls and spotted a half-open metal hatch. Without hesitation, he shoved it open and climbed through. Musa followed, wincing with his injured arm. They dropped into a storage room filled with sacks of grain. The dust made Traore cough, but the silence was a relief, until a loud crack shattered it. A bullet had pierced the thin wall. Grain spilled like a waterfall. "They've tracked us," Musa hissed. Traore grabbed the flash drive from his pocket and handed it to Musa. "If they catch me, you get this to the African press. No delays." Musa hesitated, then nodded. From outside, an engine roared to life, and headlights flooded through the window. The truck screeched to a halt. Voices shouted in English and French, demanding surrender. Traore motioned for Karim and Musa to split. "Go in opposite directions. They can't follow us all." Karim's eyes filled with worry. "Sir, You won't make it alone. I'll buy you time, Traore replied firmly. Before they could argue, he grabbed a sack of grain and hurled it at the window, shattering it. The sudden movement drew gunfire, giving Karim and Musa the chance to vanish into the night. Traore darted out the back, his boots pounding against the dirt road. The air smelled of smoke and diesel. He could hear one truck peeling off to chase him. As he ran past the edge of the market, he spotted a familiar figure, an old woman selling bread. She stepped forward, blocking the road with her cart. The truck braked hard, men shouting angrily. Traore didn't look back. But as he disappeared into the darkness, one thought burned in his mind. If Musa gets caught, the truth dies with him. The old woman's wrinkled hand grabbed Traore's wrist just as he passed. "Captain," she whispered, "they came to me first, asking where you'd be tonight." Her eyes darted toward the truck, now reversing to get past her cart. "They said if I helped, they'd give me enough to feed my grandchildren for a year." Traore froze, feeling the weight of her words. "But you didn't." Her lips trembled. "I told them nothing, but they'll come back. And next time, I don't know if I can stop them." The sound of boots on gravel drew closer. Without another word, she pushed him toward a narrow path between two buildings. As he slipped away, the smell of warm bread clung to him, oddly comforting in the chaos. Then a voice shouted behind him in perfect French, "We have him! Move in!" A beam of blinding light swept over him. Traore darted left, heart pounding. The alley ended in a tall chain-link fence. He scaled it quickly, scraping his hands on the sharp metal. Landing hard on the other side, he rolled to his feet, but found himself face to face with a man in a dark suit. Not a soldier, not police. The stranger raised his hands. "Captain, listen. I'm not here to arrest you. I'm here to get you out before it's too late." Traore narrowed his eyes. "Who sent you?" "Someone in Washington who doesn't want Vance's plan to succeed." It was the first hint of cracks inside the enemy's camp. Before Traore could reply, a deafening gunshot ripped through the air, shattering the street lamp above them. The man flinched, then shouted, "They've found us! We move now!" They ran through the dim streets, the sound of engines closing in. The man in the suit led him to a black sedan, idling under a broken billboard. "Get in. This is the only way you survive tonight." Traore's hand lingered on the door handle. If this was a trap, he'd never see Karim or Musa again. As if reading his mind, the man said, "You have enemies, but also allies you've never met. The choice is yours." In the distance, headlights burst around the corner, the same truck from before. Soldiers spilled out, rifles raised. For a split second, Traore caught the scent of diesel mixed with rain, and a memory of his mother telling him, the right path is rarely the safe one. He had seconds to decide. Step into the sedan, or run into the dark with nothing but hope. The truck's engines roared, headlights slicing through the rain. The man in the suit yanked open the sedan door. "Now, Captain." Traore's chest tightened. His soldiers had taught him one thing: never walk blindly into a promise you didn't ask for. Instead of stepping in, he looked the man in the eye. "If you're truly my ally, you'll come with me on foot." The man hesitated, just enough for Traore to see the truth: fear. Behind them, boots splashed through puddles. Shouts grew louder. Traore turned and sprinted into the dark alley, pulling the man with him. A gunshot rang out, the smell of burning metal filling the air. Somewhere deep inside, Traore knew. The real fight wasn't to survive tonight, but to protect the reason he said no to Vance in the first place. They burst into an abandoned warehouse. Rain dripped through holes in the roof. Traore shoved the man against a wall. "Talk. Who are you, really?" The man's voice cracked. "CIA. But I was sent without their approval. There's a split in Washington. Some want you silenced. Some Want you at the table." A faint metallic click echoed in the shadows. Traore spun around. A small red light blinked on a pillar, not a camera, a bomb timer. The man's face went pale. This wasn't me. The seconds ticked down, each beep louder than the rain. Somewhere outside, sirens wailed, but they were too far. In that moment, Traore thought of his people in Burkina Faso, and how history would remember his choice tonight. With 4 seconds left, Traore grabbed a rusted fire extinguisher and smashed the device off the pillar. Sparks flew. The timer froze at 1. The man in the suit gasped. "You just saved us both." Traore stepped back, rain dripping from his jawline. "I didn't do it for you. I did it because my people need me alive." Outside, the soldiers' shouts faded. Whoever planted that bomb had failed, but Traore knew this was just the first move in a much bigger game. The man asked, "What now?" Traore's voice was steady. "Now, I send my answer to Washington, and it will not be in words." He walked into the rain, each step firm, as if the storm itself bowed to his will. If this was war, he would fight it on his own terms. If you felt every second of this story, hit the like button, share it, and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Traore's place?